right, welcome to the agenda on Dominion Brokers Group this lovely Monday morning. Yes, my name is Chike Ubogu, and it's time for us to set an agenda for today. Well, let's start with this. Well, some sad news happening around the world economically and then physically too. We'll be looking at the Iran-Israel crisis at the moment, and then the spillover to countries vis-a-vis Nigeria. Well, global crude oil prices may cross to $80 per barrel this week, following the major escalation in tensions between the United States and Iran, with the oil market reacting sharply to reports of coordinated U.S.-Israeli airstrikes on key Iranian nuclear facilities. Well, this came as marketers of petroleum products said petrol prices may soon rise to 1,000 naira per litre due to rising crude oil prices and the volatility in the foreign exchange market. Well, this development follows a preemptive defensive strike, overnight attacks launched by the United States on 3 of Iran's major nuclear sites. Joining me this morning to make some sense out of some of these issues within the polity is our in-house analyst and a development researcher, John Izuchukwu. John, good morning. It's good to have you again this lovely Monday morning.
Yeah, Chike, good morning. I'm glad to be here too.
Well, to me, the Monday is lovely. I don't know if it is lovely.
Oh, certainly.
Oh, okay. All right. Looking at what's been going on between Israel, Iran, and the United States coming on board to also maybe support Israel by striking at Iran. Crude prices are dropping. That's what we're looking at. And actually, the price is going higher to as high as $80 per barrel, as reports have it this week. Well, the implication on Africa, the implication on Nigeria.
Yes, thank you, Chike. What's important is for us to look at, first of all, international politics that has been going on, with this war, because globally, analysts have posited that Trump is one of those dangerous human beings living in our generation, because if this crisis is not managed, the humanitarian implication on the world will be very devastating. We're already seeing pictures and evidences of destruction at a very alarming rate on the two sides. So there is need for the global players in international politics to reconsider their position, particularly America, because you cannot at all time throw your weight behind one particular nation, because the others are also human beings, and there must be a way to diplomatically address it, which is what everybody has said over, since this war started. But when we look at it on how it affects us, which is also a reason for which Africans, Nigerians, we need to begin to look at the alternative to oil. Because these are external factors that affects the trajectory of crude oil price. And it will have a spiral effect on your local economy, because oil is your major product, is what you depend on largely.
Yeah, when it was the turn of Ukraine, Russia, we also had this issue of oil, and so you were talking about thinking of diversifying.
Chike, that's where the world is going. That we can't, it's just that we are giving lip service to this conversation. The people at the MSOF, the people who are leading us, know that it's no longer sustainable. Today, countries are already, in fact, I read the other day, Europe is phasing out in no distance time the use of oil. There are now cars who are electrically powered. The others who are now even using solar. So you are just there, not thinking forward, and we are going to be wasting our future if we don't prepare for this. So, because that's how it affects us majorly. And perhaps if Iran is going to, if Nigeria do not align with what they are doing, maybe it's going to affect our security in a way because, of their, empathy and sympathy for the jihadists down here, which is why we have to be careful how we meddle into this conflict. We don't just make any, unguided utterances because we can't stand the pressure that will come from either of those two countries.
Well, like what you're saying, predominantly Iranians are more of the Shiites, and then we have a large population of the Sunnis here in the part of the country, so in the part of the world, especially in Africa. But let's not even look towards that angle because we can imagine how devastating that could be. Well, tensions between Israel and Iran have reached a boiling point, raising fears of a wider regional war. From drone strikes to nuclear ambitions, this decade-long shadow conflict has now burst into the open. What's driving the escalation, and where does it go from here? The Israel-Iran conflict has long been fought through proxies. Remember the Hezbollah in Lebanon or Hamas in Gaza? But in April 2024, the rules changed after a suspected Israeli strike on Iran's consulate in Damascus killed senior Iran commanders. Iran retaliated with a direct attack, launching over 300 drones and missiles at Israel. Most of these were intercepted, but the message was clear. Iran is no longer relying solely on proxies. Iran is striking directly. Israel's response? A limited strike near Isfahan. It has signaled restraint, but the risk of miscalculation remains high. Before we move further, now the shellings are serious at this time. It has always been on the ground, but now it has come out full-blown. And Iran is no longer depending on proxies anymore. The Hezbollah in Lebanon, remember how Israel struck Hezbollah, and now Hamas in Gaza was also fighting there, but Israel, one way or the other, conquered them. And now Iran does not want to use proxies again. They're going direct.
Yes, you see, the tension started rising from, I think, October 7th, 2023. That's when the tension started rising, after that attack on Israel. So, but you see, basically for me, if we look at this conflict, we look at where are we standing in history? Because if care is not taken, we're going to experience what look like another war, world war, from that angle. Because if America today does not, put some restraint and meddle into this war in such a way that it becomes a global issue, it is not too good in a time where most nations of the world are struggling economically. It's not too good in a time where most nations of the world have IDPs within their own country. They're managing their own humanitarian crisis. Now, coupled with a global humanitarian crisis like this, I think that reason should prevail. Because in the all, we have to still preach peace. We have to talk about diplomacy, and which I think that Mr. Trump is not doing too well by harassing, Iran in most of his comments and his tweets. I think as a people, as a generation, we need to again reconsider how we take our stance on this war so that it doesn't degenerate into another world war, which will not be good for any part of the world, particularly the Middle East. I know that there's a tension that, because it's always been said and known that Iran is building a nuclear weapon, has a nuclear facility and all of that, and that Iran is a threat to the world. But we also do not need to manage this conflict in such a way that it becomes a global issue, such that it spills over to other nations of the world. It has to be properly managed. And for those who are, always behind the Zionist, it must be clear that every human being's life is important. Your religion is not as important as the sanctity of life. And allowing this humongous damage go on in Iran is an eyesore, and it also shows the hypocrisy of the West. We also need to look at it from that angle, and not just always thinking that the Zionists are always right. We need to look at it very critically so that we don't set up ourselves to destroy ourselves.
It's seeming like you said, if not curtailed, it could have a ripple effect on the world and maybe a World War III in the making. However, let's look at these causes. It's not just about retaliation. The roots run deeper. If you start from the nuclear fears, Israel sees Iran's uranium enrichment as an existential threat. And that's why they're saying, oh no, let's hit these people before they strike us.
Not just Israel, the Americans.
Okay.
Of course, they are imagining what Iran can do. With that kind of, instrument in their hands, which is a mass destruction instrument. So, I think that the need, but of course, you're also aware that Iran had signed a treaty to this effect, which has also limited their propensity to use such, weapon. So, but again, during this war, I also read that Iran was also making an attempt to pull out of that treaty. We need, I don't know what Mr. Trump is thinking, but you cannot champion the destruction of our world. We must all, that's why we're saying that all the major global leaders should intervene in this. They should speak to this. Ironically, even Putin was calling for peace.
So that's the irony.
Ironically, but you see, we need to also consider, because they must also look at the implication on this,
the devastating
implication on this on the world. Now you are going to be channeling resources toward this area, which is an uncalled for. Given the current economic challenges that the world is experiencing, and these countries have allies. They have other countries they have businesses with. As this attack is ongoing, it's affecting most of those countries.
Let's listen to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu speak and on the issue, the crisis at hand, and the role of America.
Known each other for many years, and we appreciate what you're doing now, helping protect Israeli lives against the criminal regime in Iran. I want to wish also a 250th happy birthday to the American Army. The men and women of the armed services of the United States have protected freedom for 2.5 centuries. We would not have a free world without you. Thank you on behalf of free peoples everywhere. Today, Israel is defending freedom in the Middle East and beyond. We're doing so against a tyrannical and radical Iranian regime that wants to build atomic bombs to destroy us and wants to build ballistic missiles, including intercontinental ballistic missile, to be able to threaten anyone and everywhere in the world. By defending ourselves, we're also defending others. We're defending our Arab neighbors, our Arab friends in peace. We're defending Europe. We're helping defend also the United States, which helps us all the time in our defense. This is an important mission. Right now, the Iranian regime is bombing our civilian neighborhoods while we are targeting the terrorists. Now, this is not new. They've tried to assassinate President Trump twice. They bombed American embassies. They killed 241 Marines in Beirut. They killed and injured thousands of Americans with their IEDs in Iraq and Afghanistan. They burn the American flag. They chant endlessly, "Death to America." Our enemy is your enemy. And by doing what we're doing, we're dealing with something that will threaten all of us sooner or later. Our victory will be your victory. How do we intend to achieve that victory? Well, we've already done great things. We've taken out their senior military leadership. We've taken out their senior technologists who are leading the race to build atomic weapons that would threaten us, but not only us. We've done all that and many other things. But we are also aware of the fact that there's more to be done. So we're preparing. We paved the way to Tehran, and our pilots over the skies of Tehran will deal blows to the Ayatollah regime that they cannot even imagine. And I can tell you this, we have indications that senior leaders in Iran are already packing their bags. They sense what's coming. I'll tell you what would have come if we hadn't acted. We had information that this unscrupulous regime was planning to give the nuclear weapons that they would develop to their terrorist proxies. That's nuclear terrorism on steroids. That would threaten the entire world. This is what Israel is doing with the support, the clear support of the President of the United States, Donald Trump, and the American people, and many others in the world. So with God's help, and with the goodwill and resolution of all free societies, we shall win.
All right, you listen to the Prime Minister of Israel there, Benjamin Netanyahu. John, he says, what is coming is brutal. You know, he gave reasons why. Okay, so now, why do we have to build intercontinental ballistic missiles, IEDs, kill humans, just to be in a society where there's no peace and rancor? Yes. Is Iran in trouble with what Netanyahu is saying? Because Ayatollah, who is the leader, the supreme leader in Iran, seems to be so comfortable, because we'll be listening to him in a bit. He seems to be so comfortable and leading a movement that is out to destroy, you know? They're not looking at both friend and foe.
Exactly.
They're looking at a massive collateral damage at this time, brutal by Netanyahu.
Yes. The former Iranian president, before this current one, he said his goal is to ensure that Israel is eliminated from the map of the Middle East. And so this agenda has been on for a long time, and the world knows it. And that's also why you look at the reasoning of these countries in the Middle East, how they think. And it's all about world domination. It's all about conquering the world and pedestrian their faith and their belief system over that which the West has brought. Is an ideological war, you know, that is ongoing, and they want to accomplish it using every means and any means. And so, why some of us feel that Netanyahu is going too much is because in every war, there are rules guiding war.
Rules of engagement. Now,
you don't, for instance, block humanitarian services. Women and children are exceptional. They are taken care of in a war situation.
But sometimes rules are meant to be broken, especially when you forecast the devastating
but you see,
effect.
Even though at that, we must not throw ethics to the thin air. It helps us in regulating what we do. Because without ethics, we will become like the Bayesian society. So the issue here is that Netanyahu has strategically brought in America to the center of this war. No doubt that Iran is a threat to the world. For a long time, this nuclear weapon issue, this intercontinental ballistic missile has been ongoing. But again, like the saying goes, that two wrongs can never make a right. There must be an approach. Because look at Chike, if these guys get angry and try out one of those ballistic missiles on the world and say, whatever happen, let it happen. We are willing to be exterminated. I mean, it's going to be very so. There must be a caution in our use of force, and which I think Mr. Trump has been. They've been advising him, don't go headlong into this war, because these guys they seem not to have anything to lose. Somebody who is willing to die for what he believes, somebody who is willing to put his life on the line for an ideology, for a belief system. Now, what do you think he cannot do? So, as much as what Netanyahu is doing, as he has said, is to protect the world, he also must be careful so that it doesn't overstep his bound and get the world destroyed. However, the rules of engagement in a wartime still have to be engaged. We don't need to throw it into caution, into the thin air and take away the fact that there are women in these same places, there are children in these same places, and then just kill people arbitrarily, and then present to the world using the power of the media as if you are the worst hit in this war, which we know that is not true. Iran is the worst hit in this instance.
Israel is playing the victim.
Chike I think it's just a media arrangement, because when you look at what's happening to Iran as we speak, they are losing. But my position is that these are human beings. We can find a way to address this issue.
Human beings with weapons of mass destruction.
Chike, they feel that they've been oppressed for a long time.
And
the only way to help
that,
yourself is to be empowered, so you can challenge the world powers. And because of the domineering nature of the West, so they have a reason to defend themselves.
All right. Well, if you look at Israel itself, Israel is surrounded by Hezbollah, Houthis, and Hamas, which is a rival and then an ally to Iran. But here, there's this breaking story here this morning. It's saying Trump speculates about regime change in Iran as Tehran vows decisive response to U.S. attacks. Yes, so Trump is already speculating a change in government, that Ayatollah might be exterminated, as it were, not just removed, might be exterminated, as it were, and then there could be a regime change in Iran. However, Tehran, the capital of Iran, is saying, no, we are going to strike back at U.S. for attacking us. So it is getting wider.
And that's what we're saying. Caution has to be taken. Trump has to be, he has to be careful. Otherwise, this conflict is going to escalate beyond measure. And it is not the best for the world at this point. It's made too many enemies for the America in his second coming. And if he gets into this war, is that what he will do for the rest of these 4 years? So it is wisdom for the world to look into this matter, particularly the major players in international politics, and see how this issue can be addressed diplomatically. All right. Otherwise, it may not be to the interest of the world eventually. Iran's
military has vowed a decisive response after Trump says U.S. strikes caused monumental damage to Iranian nuclear sites. And we also have here the foreign minister of Iran is visiting Moscow already to have talks with Putin. So to see, they say both of them have, according to them, common challenges and threats. So they're trying to put themselves.
There is synergy.
Yeah,
that has to go on there.
Exactly. So they're looking for partners. They're looking for allies.
Certainly, that's
to see how they can exterminate the enemies, as it were. But let's then listen to the Iranian leader. Let's listen to the Iranian leader, Ayatollah, speaking, although it's transcribed, but let's just watch Ayatollah, the leader of, the supreme leader of Iran.
این منطقه باید برود و خواهد رفت. حتما تو این منطقه اون نقطه مایه فساد، مایه جنگ، مایه اختلاف رژیم صهیونی است. رژیم صهیونی که غده سرطانی خطرناک مهلک این منطقه است، حتما باید برکنده شود و خواهد شد.
All right. You saw those captions there where it says death to Israel. Is there a risk of a wider war at the moment?
Very true. The risk is high.
And look at the people there being, would you say they're being brainwashed or being manipulated? Because the supreme leader of Iran is leading a movement, and these people don't seem to understand the devastating effect of whatever is going to be coming out from Iran.
You see, these people have an ideology that drives them, and it's fundamentally religious. And they believe that they can die for what they believe in. That's why you don't fight with somebody who is willing to die. If you're not willing to die, you must find a diplomatic way to address the issue. These persons are willing to get everybody exterminated because life is nothing to them. And so you cannot also, join issue with somebody like this. So I think there's a need for some level of wider stakeholders engagement to resolving this issue, particularly now. Otherwise, it's going to be very terrible for the world.
If you look at the spillover, if you consider the spillover, you find out that the United States is treaty bound to defend Israel. That's on one hand. Iran could also disrupt global oil supplies, which is already happening through the Strait of Hormuz, which America is trying to talk to China about. So they just block it. And it's already happening. Now, if Hezbollah joins full-scale Israel, if Hezbollah joins and they say, okay, yes, considering that they have a boundary to Israel, that's Lebanon, Israel could face a two-front war. Because other countries, Gaza could also join.
Certainly.
So before you know what is happening, Israel is at the center, is expanding, and their neighboring countries are the ones who start shelling Israel. Because of the ideology, common ideology
of those neighboring countries.
Yes.
And that's also why Israel all their lives have been fighting. And I think they are used to it. I think a friend was in Israel, some time ago, and he said, young ladies in Israel, when you talk to them, they were like, oh man, we are willing to join the army anytime, any day to defend our country. So they are so passionate about their country. And I think that it's not new that these guys are willing to take arms and defend their country. And Israel, all their lives, had been fighting war. And that's why they have the United States as a strong ally to defend them, to support them in time like this. But when we look at the overall devastating impact of this war or this projection on the world, on their region, and on their allies, on other countries that they have businesses with, we'll see that at the end of the day, it is not going to be to the benefit of it. No war, no matter how strong you are. Russia cannot say today that the war against Ukraine, that Russia, did not have impact of that war. You will see properties destroyed, you see humongous amount of money being spent, you see humanitarian crises that are offshoot of that war on both sides. That's why wise people in 21st century do not just engage in war. Because at the end of the day, what you spend in rebuilding war-torn society is more than what you would have needed to advance that society. War-torn society are very difficult to rebuild. Just take a look at the Nigerian case. Up to today, you could see the impact of the war on rebuilding that society. And it's also the same way in most countries that had experienced war over the years. So it is wisdom for us to advance diplomacy. And I do not understand why, anyways, there's a lot of international policies going on with this war. But what we are saying is, at the end of the day, who will be the most beneficiary of this war? And who will be the most loser? And which, most of the case, is the other countries who are having businesses with them and the weaker country. In this case, if America throws its weight very strong as they have done now, with Israel, and there much destruction against the Iran and other countries around them begin to support them to fight Israel, the both sides are going to lose at different magnitude.
So, as it stands now, who do you think will blink first?
Well, given the huge support of the Americans, Iran may go down in history, but to whose benefit it is?
So, to whose benefit is it for these weapons to be released?
No. You see, Chike, don't also forget.
If you listen to Ayatollah, the supreme leader of Iran, he wasn't ready for a dialogue. He's not
from his comments.
Yes, from his comments and his body language.
Headlong.
Yes. So he's not even he's not trying to settle down for a dialogue.
I don't think that I want to see a world where Iran will be taken out completely from the map of the Middle East. I also do not want to see a world where Israel will be exterminated completely from the map of the Middle East or the map of the world. We need to look at how to resolve this matter.
We'll come to conflict resolution, very soon. So where I'm going to now is the role of the United Nations in all of this. Especially shouldn't there be diplomatic efforts to quell this crisis at the moment? And then when we say United Nations and we have member countries who are at loggerheads at this time, Fela Anikulapo Kuti, in one of his songs, some will say this man might just be that lyrical prophet, as it were. He sang a song and he said, waiting the United inside United Nations, pararara, and let me just end it there. So what is united in the United Nations, considering the fact that two countries who are members of the UN are at loggerheads?
You see, after the Second World War, there was a need for the world to come together and found, an organization that the whole world, the whole countries of the world will be part of, so that human rights will be taken care of, so that conflict before they escalate to other parts of the world will be addressed. And that was why the United Nations was founded in 1948. And the question is that, based on international politics, the countries who are part of the Security Councils, which Russia is a member. And before Russia invaded Ukraine, there were orders by the United Nations that Russia should not do that. But Putin jettisoned those orders. And then, in fact, when they even said they would place sanctions on him, he jettisoned them and went ahead. And you see that these members of the Security Council, how many of the countries in the Middle East or in Africa are part of them? They determine who gets what and what happens in the United Nations, which is also why other countries, other continents, particularly Africa, is saying that this United Nations must be united enough to have our own interest included in it. We are supposed to be part of the decision-making member, over 53 nations in Africa. So we cannot sit back and then just receive orders from the West. But look at it today. Iran is not a member of that council. And the strong ally supporting Israel is a member of that council. So what do you expect?
Well,
they don't play by the rule when it comes to certain countries. That's why, in fact, there have been several advocacy now that there needs to be a restructuring, a review of the United Nations and its components.
Okay, so now remember that some months back, there was this crisis between NATO and the United States. Now, are you also seeing NATO coming into this, as it were, despite the fact that it's happening in the Middle East? But for them to quell the ripple effect to Europe, NATO might want to get themselves involved. And then you see a Donald Trump who happened to be against NATO. And then the whole thing, the spiral keeps widening.
That's why it's international politics. A lot are going on that are not even on the surface. But I think that NATO may not necessarily come into it, given the stance of, Donald Trump and NATO, given that Donald Trump
is what if at the end of the day,
these are permutations.
These are permutations. Now, Iranian military chief is in Moscow in talks with Putin. What if Russia aligns with Iran? And then at the end of the day, remember, NATO, Russia, US, the relationship.
I don't think that Russia will give Iran that full-chested support. You know the reason? Because these countries, the West does not want any other country to be as strong as they are, particularly in terms of military might and economically. That's why China is a big threat today. If they have their way, they will bring that China economically. So they will also not want a country whose military strength can challenge their strength. So whatever you are seeing as talk is more or less, well, I'm thinking it will be, let's find a way to address this issue. Let's not join issues with America and other countries, and which Putin may now champion the negotiation or dialogue process for this war, which I'm just thinking that may be the next move.
All right, Donald Trump, the president of the United States of America, who returned to the White House in January, promising to be a peacemaker, has taken a dramatic step to insert the U.S. into the fraught conflict between Iran and Israel. Far from bringing peace to the Middle East since taking office, Donald Trump is now presiding over a region on the precipice of even greater warfare, a fight in which America is an active participant. In a televised address to the nation from the White House, just over 2 hours after announcing on social media that American forces have struck 3 nuclear sites in Iran, the American president said the operation had been a spectacular success. Donald Trump has a way of garnishing these things. He's a powerful man. He expressed hope that his move would open the door to a more lasting peace where Iran no longer had the potential to become a nuclear power. Let's get to listen to President Donald Trump of the United States of America.
Time ago, the U.S. military carried out massive precision strikes on the 3 key nuclear facilities in the Iranian regime: Fordow, Natanz, and Esfahan. Everybody heard those names for years as they built this horribly destructive enterprise. Our objective was the destruction of Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity and a stop to the nuclear threat posed by the world's #1 state sponsor of terror. Tonight I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier. For 40 years, Iran has been saying death to America, death to Israel. They have been killing our people, blowing off their arms, blowing off their legs with roadside bombs. That was their specialty. We lost over 1,000 people, and hundreds of thousands throughout the Middle East and around the world have died as a direct result of their hate. In particular, so many were killed by their general, Qasem Soleimani. I decided a long time ago that I would not let this happen. It will not continue. I want to thank and congratulate Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu. We worked as a team like perhaps no team has ever worked before. And we've gone a long way to erasing this horrible threat to Israel. I want to thank the Israeli military for the wonderful job they've done. And most importantly, I want to congratulate the great American patriots who flew those magnificent machines tonight and all of the United States military on an operation the likes of which the world has not seen in many, many decades. Hopefully, we will no longer need their services in this capacity. I hope that's so. I also want to congratulate the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Raisin Kane, spectacular general, and all of the brilliant military minds involved in this attack. With all of that being said, this cannot continue. There will be either peace or there will be tragedy for Iran far greater than we have witnessed over the last 8 days. Remember, there are many targets left. Tonight's was the most difficult of them all, by far, and perhaps the most lethal. But if peace does not come quickly, we will go after those other targets with precision, speed, and skill. Most of them can be taken out in a matter of minutes. There's no military in the world that could have done what we did tonight, not even close. There has never been a military that could do what took place just a little while ago. Tomorrow, General Kane, Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth will have a press conference at 8 a.m. at the Pentagon. And I want to just thank everybody, and in particular, God. I want to just say we love you, God, and we love our great military. Protect them. God bless the Middle East. God bless Israel, and God bless America. Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, welcome back from there. Iran, that's Donald Trump there. Before we go further, is Donald Trump a bully?
He's the most powerful man in the world as we speak.
Because he was sounding like a bully.
He's the most
a bully who eventually ended up calling God.
He's the most powerful man. So, and he uses his power as he likes, without restraint. And I think that he must be checked, because it may be dangerous for the world at this point in time, you know. But he has the power, and so he's using it.
Absolute power.
He has the power.
Well, Iran has said that there was only minor damage to its heavily fortified Fordo nuclear sites. Time will tell which side is correct. Trump is saying they have decimated the nuclear site, but Iran is saying there's only just one minor damage. So they're not giving up.
No. Those guys are ready for war. But that's why I said it's difficult to fight a man who is willing to die. You are looking at
who is willing to die. It's very difficult to fight
because
him.
He doesn't care. He's made up his mind. In this war, we are dying.
He'll say all dying
so
are
if
dying.
you want to live, find a way to address, make peace with him, and then that treaty they signed, I think, has restricted them. If they pull out of that treaty and decide to say, what's the worst case scenario? So that's why I'm saying that America should not frontally begin to attack them. However, they also need to be checked so that they don't use what they have. And that's why, like you said, what is the United Nations doing? Because I have not seen them make any categorical statement since this war began. And to say, this is our position. So it means that they're also in alignment that the Iranian nuclear weapon site has to be taken out of the way.
If Iran retaliates, as Ayatollah and Al-Khamenei had warned would happen in the event of a U.S. attack, so will America feel compelled to retaliate?
That's what it will mean.
Because they have said if America touches them, that they will strike back.
Which is what America has done.
Now, America has done that. Are we expecting a strike back?
On America?
On America.
I think that would be a tough one to predict, because no matter how war hungry Iran is, I don't think they will be able to do that. Considering the weight of America, you can't undermine America. No matter how you think or look at them, they are forced to be reckoned with when it comes to military might and weapons. So you can't. I don't think they will be able to go that frontally against America.
Well, the world may just have entered a new phase of conflict, right?
That's what it is, and it's not too good. It's not too good. While we're trying to recuperate and balance our economies, it's not the best time for us to get into international war like this.
Well, before we leave, something happened in Nigeria over the weekend. I'm coming to that. However, did you follow up the story of a group of people who went for a wedding and missed their way? They were only asking for a route. In Kaduna, wedding visitors from Kaduna going to Plateau State lost their way, and instead of getting help, their bus was waylaid, driver killed, and the bus set ablaze with passengers inside. Very sad. The devil now seems to wear human flesh in Nigeria. How did we get so intolerant and so blood-sucking that life now means nothing to us as a people?
I think that the political elite, every time election is coming close, they look for how to set this country ablaze. And is a major concern for all of us as a country. What's happening today in Nigeria, like I was telling somebody yesterday, is the handiwork of the Nigerian politicians. The current state of insecurity rising by the day. And the level of intolerance we now have, some persons are finding the empires of war behind the scene. And those persons should be apprehended, because you can't tell me that these people are hidden. They've made comments here and there, pockets of comments that should be enough for us to track them, because it would be too sad. I mean, today, which the other day, the report that said Nigeria happens to be the happiest nation on earth, where people, assist strangers the more. The Nigeria ranks, is it number 7 or so? So Nigeria is reputed to be a country where if foreigners come in here, we attend to them well.
We're accommodating.
How is it that we are now no more accommodating even ourselves? It's sad. It's sad. So, but again, Chike, it boils down to leadership. The leaders are selling hatred, selling intolerance, selling ethnic bigotry, whereas in National Assembly, they are one. They attend each other's party, attend each other's functions. They forget political divides. Once it comes to their issues, they are together. It's only when they are about to talk about governance and about what attends to us as Nigerians that they are divided.
They have one common interest.
But one, it's their personal things, they have one common interest.
Anyway, a high-stakes game with no easy exits. The world is watching closely, hoping cooler heads prevail. For now, the Middle East holds its breath. Thank you, John Izuchukwu, for being here today.
It's my pleasure, Chike.
Let's keep this conversation going. Do follow us on all our social media platforms on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. The handle is at Dominion Broadcast. On the app X, it is Dominion Cast. Visit our website at www.dominion.org.ng. My name is Chike Obogu. Please do have a peaceful week ahead.